Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of America Uncanceled here at CPAC Now. And boy, there's been some very interesting polls that have come out. The Washington Post was basically telling the American people that they were repudiating the results of their own Washington Post ABC poll because it dared to show a trend in support for Donald Trump to the point where he's now dominating Joe Biden in their head-to-head matchup by 10 points. Trump was dominating independents, and so all this word narratives that gets used in the swamp a lot, all the narratives they're trying to sow that Donald Trump's indictments would really torpedo his political future, that skipping debates was like a juvenile move and that would hurt him in the head-to-head with these Republicans. Nothing that these folks at the Washington Post and the other fake news media is saying has turned out to be true. So when we get a bunch of polls, and we just had another one come out from Harris X that shows Donald Trump also leading Joe Biden in a kind of a commanding way, we love to talk to our CPAC board member, someone who is a true expert in the math of polling, a great friend, Jim McLaughlin. Thanks for joining us again.
Oh, great to be here, Matt. It's always a pleasure.
All right, well, so let's start with kind of, I think, is the money shot on all these polls, which is the theme goes this way, Jim. Donald Trump might be able to get radical, extreme MAGA Republicans to like him, but he can't work in the middle. He can't work with independents. His brand of politics puts people off, and so then the Republicans in this town who believe this all say that's why Trump can't win. Well, lo and behold, all these polls are coming out that show that their theories are wrong.
As usual, Matt. It's always, you know who some of the worst political prognosticators are? The Republican donor class.
Yes.
The Republican donor class has been telling us the whole time, the establishment has been telling us the whole time, oh, Donald Trump can't win. Well, you know what? It's not just the Washington Post poll. It is virtually every legitimate major poll that comes out here right now. And it's not just the national polls, it's also the polls in the battleground states, because we've seen polls where Donald Trump is ahead in Wisconsin, he's tied in Michigan, he's ahead in Pennsylvania right now. And what's very interesting about this whole thing, and you mentioned the point of how strongly he's running among independents right now, but there is a real voter that voted for, it's a pretty decent segment of the electorate right now that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 that is now voting for Donald Trump. It's a significant portion of the electorate. It's about 10 or 12%. They have buyer's remorse where they voted for Joe Biden, but now they're coming over to Donald Trump. And Joe Biden is losing Democrats right now. He's losing among independents. And the other key voter group that he's losing support with is among Hispanic voters. Yeah. And we've talked about this. And I said this from the stage at CPAC last year. I said, not only do I think Donald Trump and Republicans are going to do well with Hispanics in this election, I think there's a very good chance they can win among Hispanics. And one last point I want to make about, the Washington Post poll that they're running away from their own poll right now is they've got Joe Biden at 42% of the vote. If you take the average of the Real Clear Politics polls right now, they've got Joe Biden at 44%. Well within that margin of error. And if you're an incumbent president and you're in the low to mid 40s, you're in trouble, because the vast majority of those undecided voters, they're going to break away from Joe Biden.
Now, this is one of the strangest of elections, because essentially you have two incumbents. Donald Trump, I think, is running as the Republican incumbent, even though it's separated by some years here. And Joe Biden is, of course, the incumbent. But when you're the sitting president, it's a judgment on what you've done. And if you look across the board, there's really not an area of strength for Joe Biden. It's a big problem for him. Like foreign affairs, no one sees he's not standing up to China in a way to hold them back, or to Putin in a way to hold them back. You have the Afghanistan result. You have these numbers on the economy where people's wages are not keeping up with inflation, and even union guys are getting really crabby at the economic environment that we're in. And then you have all this cultural stuff, which Joe Biden is just completely glommed onto. Even though he used to say he was from Scranton, he's not really representing Scranton values. Am I wrong about that? Is there any kind of hope in there for the Biden people, someplace where he's doing a little better?
Look, across the board, right now, he is doing worse among voters. There's like no group that you can point to and say, hey, Joe Biden has this base of support or his support has expanded. And matter of fact, it's on the other side with Donald Trump right now. Just go look and see what Joe Biden is doing today. He's quote unquote going to, campaign with the UAW workers right now. That's basically, we shouldn't be calling it the UAW strike. We should be calling it the Joe Biden strike right now, because the reason they're on strike is because those workers, they have been getting crushed, like all Americans have been getting crushed by Joe Biden's inflation. And by the way, the companies are also getting crushed by that. That's why we're at this point right now, because when those voters, when they look at their paychecks, the average American gained about $7,000 in wealth when Donald Trump was president. They've lost about $6,400 in wealth while Joe Biden has been president. So they're feeling it in their pocketbooks right now. And it's a big problem for Biden and the Democrats. It's funny, remember a few weeks ago, he was running around and he was doing the Bidenomics offensive? Notice he's literally backed off of that now. It's almost like it literally backfired on him. Because when you look, and you're bringing up a point about, and it's the right point, Matt, where you talk about it's really a race of two incumbents. The Wall Street Journal poll not too long ago, where they basically had the race about tied, they asked, who do you think had more accomplishments, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? By double digits, they said it was Donald Trump. So it wasn't by a little bit. It wasn't tied. Mm-hmm. When voters look at the issues are the friend of Donald Trump. The issues are the friends of Republicans right now. The more we can talk about the things that they care about, like the economy, like inflation, like crime, like immigration and national security, the better off it is for conservatives.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the one caution that people who don't like Trump in this town keep saying is that, well, he's talking about all these polls where he's doing well, and we have a more than a year to go in this race. There's a lot of time on the clock. Usually that's a Republican prognosticator who's trying to breathe some hope into their latest vision of somebody who's the Trump alternative. Of course, that was Ron DeSantis until he really started to tank. A new poll came out in New Hampshire that shows him trailing Nikki Haley. So he's not even number 2 anymore. He's in one poll he was number 5. So now Nikki Haley seems to be who they all love. But this is just like a hopeful thing to become in number 2, to come in number 3. As you know, that doesn't matter. You have to actually win all these states. And when Donald Trump is at 49 or 47% in the lowest poll and up to the high 50s in some other states, it means he's gonna sweep up, right? And this idea that he couldn't win, I think is fading fast.
Yeah, and when you look at the average of polls and just say, the DeSantis folks right now, I have never seen a campaign explode the way his has. I mean, it just...
Yeah, you have. You've seen it, but it was like for a county commission race or something. You've never seen it with someone with that much money and who is such a respected Republican governor.
Yep, and it may be the biggest waste of money since the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, it is just literally, they've lit donors' money on fire. They weren't honest with the donors. They're saying, oh, Donald Trump has a base of support. It's only about 25% in the primary. That is just flat out ridiculous, especially when, look, one of the reasons, and this might be a little bit off topic, but one of the reasons why I thought Donald Trump could win the Republican primary and win it easily was when we did that first survey post-presidency, where he had a 97% approval rating among the CPAC straw poll, because that's the rank and file. They're the folks that volunteer, they donate, they're the conservative opinion leaders back home. And when I saw that, because we've seen that in past years where, whether it was George W. Bush or John McCain or Mitt Romney, the conservative base at CPAC, they moved on from those candidates. But these folks did not move on from Donald Trump. And the intensity, if anything, has even grown. I remember one of the surveys, we had him with a 99% job approval rating among the CPAC goers. And I remember thinking, oh my, that's just, we've never seen numbers like that. He is the conservative movement right now. So look, my advice, whether you're Nikki Haley or whether you're Ron DeSantis, and I know people are saying they're running for vice president, they're running for cabinet positions, they need to do what the Mike Pompeos of the world have done, what the Kristi Noems have done, and said, okay, let's stop wasting donors' money. Let's get behind Donald Trump. He's going to be our candidate, and let's talk issues. And you know, when the other point I want to make about it was to Donald Trump in the mainstream media, when he gave that first speech post-presidency at CPAC, it was a totally issue-related speech. And the conservative movement heard those issues. They heard the hope that he was giving them, that we could solve these problems. And that's when he really started to take off, was after that first CPAC speech.
You know, and I have memories of that speech because it was a difficult thing for him to do. We went down to Orlando, Florida. He had the weirdest of presidential elections we've ever had in our history, and we've had some weird ones. You know, he's got to try to figure out what's his voice post-presidency. And he was getting all this advice from everybody. And he just came to CPAC, and he started methodically to make his case for why America has to be great. And it worked. It actually showed humility because it's a tough thing to do in that situation. We've had presidents lose, Republican presidents lose, but not in a race like that where everyone's calling him at 10 o'clock at night saying, congratulations, you get 4 more years. The smartest guys in our business, Jim, were calling him saying, congratulations, it's all over. And the next thing you knew, a few hours later, we had all the weirdness. But he still kind of soldiered on, put on the blue suit, made the case. And he's not, you know, he didn't take 3 years off and then just pop back in. He kept this conversation going, which I think was, it captured the hearts and minds of the conservatives when he did that.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because you and I are seeing this. What we're seeing right now is this president, you and I talk to him, he is probably more determined than I've ever seen him when it comes to this election, because he truly believes, and he sees it every day, and he talks to people every day, that Joe Biden is destroying our country right now. And that's why he wants to be president again. And he's putting together, and you look at his Agenda 47, and I recommend all our viewers to go to his website and look at Agenda 47. It's new and improved policies. He succeeded when it came to inflation. He succeeded when it came to creating jobs. He succeeded in terms of our national security and immigration. Go to his Agenda 47, and you'll see the issue-oriented agenda and the hopeful agenda that he's laying out for the next term.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a great idea. Jim, I know you're a busy man and you've got a lot of things to pack into your day, but as we finish this conversation, obviously we've had all these polls. They're very positive for Republicans. They're very positive for Donald Trump. What's the one thing we ought to be looking at as we head to, you know, we're going to have to go through some primaries and caucuses. I understand that. But, like, what's the one demographic that no one's talking about? And I'll give you a hint. I'm kind of thinking it might be that non-government union voter.
Yep. Oh, no question about it. I'll tell you something. The working class union voters are on our side right now. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Why? They intuitively know they were doing better when Donald Trump was president on every metric imaginable, whether it comes to their pocketbooks, kitchen table economic issues, immigration, national security, issues like education. They know that Donald Trump is the one that believes in parental rights. The other group I'll tell you to look at, young people. Young people are getting killed with this inflation right now. You know, like a senior can put off maybe buying a car, or they own their house and they're kind of, you know, and they can afford their rent and whatnot. But these young people, things that they have to buy, like a new home or get a new apartment, their rent, their mortgage, etc., they're getting killed on that. And the other thing we're hearing from young women, they don't feel safe in their communities these days. So I think the two groups you want to look at young people and you want to look at Hispanic voters.
And especially if we can pull back Hispanic women voters, boy, could make this a really, really, really interesting race. Republicans are convinced they can't win the popular vote. If we win, it's a squeaker. I don't know. I'm beginning to expand my horizons.
I think we have a real shot at it. Like I said, when you have an incumbent president who's got negatives in the mid to high 50s right now, and he's also getting the low to mid 40s in terms of his vote, he's got real problems. And I think as long as we keep going, and look, it's going to be hard. The media is going to be against us. We know Hollywood's going to be against us. Big tech is going to be against us. So there's no illusions here, and we're preparing for all those scenarios where they're going to be coming after us. And who knows, maybe at the end of the day, Joe Biden isn't the candidate. They try to swap him out. But no matter who their candidate is, they're going to be saddled with the failures of Joe Biden.
And this 10-point outlier Washington Post poll, we have a new poll from Harris that shows it a 5-point race. Do you have any parting words for the editors at the Washington Post who've been tripping all over themselves to say that they're not fake news, just their polling is fake news?
You know what the interesting part is? It's like I said to you, that Biden number in that poll is not too far off from the average. Yeah. And also, it's not just the Harris poll, which is done by Mark Penn, a highly respected Democratic pollster, where Donald Trump is up by 5 points. Also, Doug Schoen, who was one of Hillary's pollsters. He worked for Mike Bloomberg. Doug Schoen also has Donald Trump significantly ahead. So the Democrats have real problems right now, and I'm telling you, they're in a panic. And we see the Joe Scarboroughs of the world, the David Ignatiuses of the world, and the Max Boots. They're all panicking right now because when they go to their wine and brie cheese parties, they say, you know what, Donald Trump really is ahead right now, and it scares the heck out of them. But you know who it doesn't scare? The forgotten middle class. Right. That's who it doesn't scare, because they know that Donald Trump can truly make America great again.
Well, I want everyone to know that Jim McLaughlin, Donald Trump's pollster, and his brother John, they're pizza and beer guys. They are not wine and brie cheese guys. I know this for a fact.
And then some. And we like a lot of pepperoni and cheese on that pizza.
That's right. Jim, thanks for your service to CPAC. Thanks for being with us today. Keep up the great work. And you all know you can get past episodes of America UnCanceled by just going to our website. Everything is right there. The website is constantly being refurbished and improved. And give us your thoughts about how you can make it even better. Or you can go to wherever you like to download your podcasts. And we'll be back at you with another important episode tomorrow.